This reading is from the Gospel of John, chapter 1, verses 1 to 18. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things were made through him, and without him nothing was made that was made. In him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not comprehend it. There was a man sent from God, whose name was John. This man came for a witness, to bear witness of the light, that all through him might believe. He was not that light, but was sent to bear witness of that light. That was the true light, which gives light to every man coming into the world.
He was in the world, and the world was made through him, and the world did not know him. He came to his own, and his own did not receive him. But as many as received him, to them he gave the right to become children of God, to those who believe in his name, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and dwelt among us, and we beheld his glory, the glory as of the only begotten of the Father, full of grace and truth. John bore witness of him and cried out, saying, "This was he of whom I said, he who comes after me is preferred before me, because he was before me." And of his fullness we have all received, and grace for grace. For the law was given through Moses, but grace and truth came through Jesus Christ. No one has seen God at any time. The only begotten Son, who is in the bosom of the Father, he has declared him.
We're going to have the talky bit now. I'm going to speak for about 10, 15 minutes. I'm just going to speak a little bit about what Christmas is all about. And you might find it strange if you've come and we didn't read about the shepherds. We did read about the wise men. But the main thing that we read about was about Jesus being the bread of life. And I'll explain why that's the case. And I hope you'll understand by the end. I love Christmas. I love carol services. But when we only look at the nativity story, we can forget that the baby in the manger grew up. The main character of the whole story grows up. And whether you're looking at the conversation of Mary and the angel Gabriel, where Jesus is yet to be born, or you're looking at the shepherds visiting when he's just been born, or seeing the wise men a few months, maybe years later, Jesus doesn't speak. And there's lots that we can learn from the fact that Jesus was a baby. It's important for us to see that God came into the world as a baby. He was born helpless and born into poverty. But I want to remind you this evening that the baby in the manger didn't stay in the manger. He grew up. And if you want to get to know a person, what they're about, why they're around, what they stand for, you'd be better off hearing them speak and hearing what they have to say for themselves rather than seeing their baby pictures. And for us to understand why Jesus came into the world, I want us to look at some of the words that he spoke. And it comes after one of the most famous miracles that Jesus ever performed. You've probably heard of this one, even if you've never been to church before. If you've never been in a church building, maybe you've heard of this in school or in an assembly or something like that. It's the story of Jesus, who's been doing amazing things and saying incredible things. And there's a huge crowd of people following him. And he sees that they're hungry. But feeding such a crowd of people would mean an eye-watering food bill. There are 5,000 men, there's women and children too. And Jesus takes a kids' packed lunch, with their permission, I'm sure, and he feeds everyone there with 5 loaves and 2 fish. And afterwards, he says to them, "I am the bread of life." Why am I telling you this at Christmas? Is it because you too will soon be catering for large groups of people? And I've got tips as to how to do that on a shoestring budget. No, it's the fact that this miracle was pointing to something far bigger than Jesus filling the bellies of this crowd. Despite it being an amazing, miraculous meal, ultimately the people who ate the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, they eventually got hungry again. But Jesus was trying to show them that they had a need for something bigger. They needed something more in life. Here's what the Bible says. This is what Hannah read to us earlier. And Jesus said to them, I am the bread of life. He who comes to me shall never hunger, and he who believes in me shall never thirst. But I said to you that you have seen me and yet do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and the one who comes to me I will be by no means cast out. For I've come down from heaven, not to do my own will, but the will of him who sent me. This is the will of the Father who sent me, that of all he has given me, I should lose nothing, but should raise it up at the last day. And this is the will of him who sent me, that everyone who sees the Son and believes in him may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. What Jesus is saying here is that he and only he can bring satisfaction in life. Maybe the fact that you're looking for satisfaction in life is something obvious to you. We're all looking for some sort of satisfaction, for meaning in life. If you bought something online, which I'm sure many of you have, maybe in the last few weeks, or you've gone for a meal, or maybe it's come to the end of the year at work, we're either asked by Amazon or the waiter or our boss, they ask, are you satisfied with how things were? But it's also the same with the more important aspects of our lives. We have to think, are we satisfied? We look at our lives and think, are we truly happy? Are we content with what we have? And the last couple of years have been really difficult. And it's caused a lot of us to think, what am I actually living for? What is important to me? What do I value in life? And when things are as difficult as they have been, Christmas gets this added pressure. Last year, we were told that we would make sacrifices for months on end so that we could enjoy Christmas. And yet, it didn't happen as we wanted it to. And it looks like the same sort of thing is happening again this year. Christmas suddenly gets this responsibility of making up for everything else. We may have had this, and we may have gone through that, but at least we have Christmas. That's what people say. But even if Christmas goes ahead, it's not long before our high expectations are ruined. You didn't get the present you wanted. The turkey is dry. Someone gets sick. You intend to have a drink and it gets out of hand. You want the day to be peaceful and a time to spend with your family, but you soon find yourselves arguing like you always do. I saw one survey found that at 10:13 a.m., the average British family will have their first argument on Christmas Day. So maybe go for a walk just before then and avoid everyone. But you can see a day which has promised so much and has got so much riding on it has suddenly left you with bitterness and regret. But even if your Christmas is wonderful and joyful and full of good spirits, and you, a bit like Scrooge at the end of Christmas Carol, and they're just saying hello to everyone and giving gifts left, right, and centre, I hope it does look like that. Even if it does look like that, and I hope it really is like that for you, and you're one of those people who wishes it could be Christmas every day, sadly, the feeling of contentment and of joy will not last. It's perhaps not surprising that there's such a thing as the January blues. The change from the joy and the optimism of Christmas is soon replaced with January and the return to work and the miserable weather and the failed New Year's resolutions. You can see why people are depressed at the start of the new year. But we can all be guilty of getting through the stress of life and the difficulty of life with and at least we have Christmas attitude, where we've placed an unhealthy burden on one day or 1 week to salvage our whole year. One day to make everything okay. It can't do that. In the kind of micro form, it's the same with the working week, isn't it? At least it's nearly the weekend. And the weekend flies by far quicker than Monday to Friday ever felt. But the attitude of, at least it's nearly the weekend, carries you throughout the week. And maybe it's not Christmas. Maybe you don't like the weekend. Maybe you're a weirdo like that. Maybe it's your job that gets you through the day. And your job is your thing that you love. And that's everything else could be falling apart, but you've got your job, your dream job, or your family, or a holiday that you've been looking forward to, or a hobby, or your social life, or your football team, whatever it might be. We're all guilty of having this one thing that if everything else fails, we've got that. At least I have this. But let me tell you, you're looking for someone or something to provide the satisfaction and the joy that it simply cannot bring. Even if it does bring some happiness, it doesn't last, it will just disappoint. But Jesus here is saying that he will not disappoint. He satisfies the hunger that we have. So what makes me and so many people that have come tonight so sure that Jesus is the answer to our problems? Why is he better than anything else that the world offers? Let me say two things. Firstly, he accepts like no one else accepts. Christmas is wonderful, isn't it? It's wonderful for many people, but for many, they relate it to very sad times in their lives, and usually to do with rejection. And if you've ever seen a Christmas film, you'll see that these themes of rejection are often at play. But always they are reunited or accepted at the end. If you're thinking of any of the Home Alone films, or you're thinking of Elf, you can have these weird characters, have no friends. By the end of the film, they're all sat around the Christmas tree and they're all enjoying one another's company. Everyone's friends. But is real Christmas like that? Are these happy endings found in your Christmas? It's a time where old wounds are reopened, memories of broken relationships, abuse or trauma from years gone by, complicated family situations. And you look at people's Instagram and their Facebook, and they're having the time of their life. And you're sat there thinking, I wish what they had. I wish I had what they had. They look so happy. It all looks so perfect. But you feel low and unloved. But when we come to Jesus, he promises that once you come to him, he will never let you down. He will never reject you or leave you. He says in verse 37 of what Hannah read to us, all that the Father gives to me will come to me, and the one who comes to me, I will never cast out. Jesus accepts people as they are. He loves them no matter where they have been before, no matter what they have done. He doesn't expect people to be perfect because he knows they can't be. Only he is perfect. And he wants people to be like him, but doesn't reject people that aren't, because no one is perfect except for him. So whoever comes to Jesus, accepting their faults, accepting that they've done wrong, and wanting their sins, the things that they've done against God, if they want those forgiven, he will never reject them. He will say, come to me. So that's the first thing. He accepts like no one else accepts. And secondly, Coming to him is free. It's free. You're thinking, surely there's a catch. There must be some sort of membership fee or something, or some blood ritual or something weird that religious people do. A place that I need to visit, a pilgrimage, a certain level of good behavior that I need to attain, a ceremony I need to go to. And it's us that's placed these barriers in front of God. And we think it's not worth investigating because it's too hard. But what if I told you that coming to Jesus was free? And in the most expensive month of the year, something free sounds good, doesn't it? We are willing to splash the cash to make Christmas ideal, don't we? I saw this horrible statistic. Brits spend an average of £1,116 in the month of December just on Christmas things. £381 on presents alone. And I know I've only spent like a fiver, so someone must be on the other end of the spectrum bringing that average up. But as we've seen, even if you've spent and spent and spent, it fades, doesn't it? But how do we come to Jesus, who says it's free? Well, you can come to him by just looking to him. This is what it says. And this is the will of him who sent me, speaking of God, that everyone who sees me and believes in me may have everlasting life, and I will raise him up at the last day. It's by believing and not by doing that people are saved. And it's free for us, but it wasn't free for him. It was costly when God came into the world, because he was not a mere man, he was God, who had all power and all authority, and suddenly had the limitations of being a man. It was costly because he died, and he took all the sins of the people that he loved on himself. And all we have to do is to look to him, to believe in him, to trust in him. All this is possible because of Jesus' death. On December the 28th last year, guess what happened? The first Easter eggs were sold in Tesco. 28th of December. Wow. And it annoys me when I see people putting Easter egg stuff up in December, 2 days after Boxing Day. It annoys me, but actually there's some deep thought here, I'm sure. Because Christmas is very much linked to Easter. You can't have Christmas without Easter. I don't think the CEO of Tesco is doing this on purpose. But Christmas is very much leading to Easter, because the reason why Jesus was born in the stable was so that he might die and bring eternal life. Birth and death are linked so heavily. And there are striking similarities between the birth and the death of Jesus, how his life started and how it ended. It starts and ends with Mother Mary in tears. It starts and ends outside in darkness, in shame, in scandal. It starts and ends with anger that Jesus was this king. It starts and ends surrounded by strangers looking at him. It starts and ends with Jesus wrapped in cloth. The first time with Mary and Joseph laying him down in a manger. And as he dies, a man called Joseph laying him down in a tomb. You see, Jesus is for life. He's not just for Christmas. He doesn't stay in the manger. He did so much more. And you might have seen those tacky rhymes on the cards. He's the reason for the season. But he's so much more. He is the reason, full stop. He's the meaning of everything. He came into the world with purpose. He came for a reason. It was to live a perfect life and die a perfect death. To rise again so that we could one day join him. This is why he brings perfect satisfaction. Nothing else offers this. Whether you're looking for a perfect Christmas, whether you're looking for a happy family, home life, a successful career, all these things are good things. But if they become your gods, then they've lost all meaning. They don't bring you the joy, the lasting, perfect joy that Jesus brings. He has forgiven our sins, which means that we can live without guilt. And by rising again, he's defeated death. What an amazing present that is. It means we don't have to be afraid. And he waits for you this evening with open arms, waiting to give you satisfaction in your life. If any of these things have confused you, or you'd love to know more about these things, please grab me or grab Paul, who told the first reading. We're the two workers here at Emmanuel, so we'd love to speak to you a bit more. There's refreshments outside afterwards, so we'd love to chat to you a bit more. And we meet here every Sunday at 11 and 6 o'clock. And we don't always have beautiful kids singing so wonderfully, but it's always a time to find out why Jesus came and what he did for us. So we're going to stand now. We're going to sing one last carol, and it's about worshipping the living God.